Hello there. Welcome into a Friday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which you can find wherever fine digital streaming apps are given away because they are free to download and free to use, and they are sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming away over the course of the program. And given what news just broke moments ago, and I will get to it here shortly after I tell you how you can give your thoughts on the matter, 719-247-1313. You can call or text in your thoughts that way. So, let me paint you a little picture here. So yesterday on the show, if you missed it, I talked about how Nicholas Waugh, the acquisition by the Avalanche yesterday, was slightly disappointing when you take into account all the talk that was going on around a potential reunion with Nazem Kadri, right? I understood if anybody was disappointed in that, but I talked about how Nicholas Waugh checks a lot of boxes for a guy that you want centering one of your two bottom lines. And I ended yesterday's show going, okay, Nazem Kadri's not coming back to the Avalanche. I am curious as to why. And that's what I was waiting on here because I thought that the Avs were not done yet. I thought that perhaps the Avalanche were going to try and do something else, maybe at the wing position. But I said, let's let this trade deadline play out and then kind of see, because there's always little tidbits that come out after the fact on why a guy was moved or wasn't moved. So as I'm undergoing quite the harrowing experience on my flight out here to Las Vegas, by the way, I'm in Las Vegas, and I'll get to that story later. I saw a report from Elliot Friedman saying that the holdup and why the Avalanche, who I thought all along were trying to get Nazem Kadri at the very least, could not get him. What the holdup was the owner of the Calgary Flames saying that he was not willing to retain any of Nazem Kadri's salary, which is, when you are a bad team unloading a good player, more often than not, you're retaining some level of salary, because what are you going to use that salary cap space for? And that was the holdup. And in fact, DJ Michaels is back at the studio today in Colorado Springs. And as he and I are getting ready for the show, he texts me. And let's see, DJ, I want to make sure I'm quoting you correctly here. He says, Edwards killed our Kadri deal, mother trucker. I don't know if that was autocorrect. You know, I've been dealing with this autocorrect issue ever since I updated my iPhone like 3 updates ago. And I said, yeah, I saw that, and it's disappointing. And then I get another text from DJ that shows me that the Colorado Avalanche at the 11th hour acquired Nazem Kadri. They got the deal done. Chris McFarland, you sly SOB, you did it. And it is the exact same trade package that was reported by Elliot Friedman and others that the Avalanche were willing to offer, which is Max Curran, who is one of their recent draft picks, a 2028 first-round pick. They dealt 2020. They don't have 2026. In fact, not that this matters at this point, but in the Braden Shen deal that took place today, that's where the Avs first-round pick this year is. They traded next year's first-round pick for Nicholas Waugh. This is 2028. Chris McFarland's doing NBA GM stuff and trading out first-round picks as far as he can trade them out. And Victor Olofsson. So one thing that was discussed on yesterday's show, forget the reuniting Nicholas Waugh with Victor Olofsson, that old Golden Knights pair on the Avs third line, because he's gone. He's going to Calgary. Avs get Kadri and a fourth-round pick next year. But what about the retaining of salary? Well, Elliot Friedman is reporting that the Flames are indeed going to be retaining some of Nazem Kadri's contract. It will be 20%. And what's that number, DJ? They're only paying Kadri $5.6 million this year. Okay. Now, we'll get into the long-term ramifications of this, but that's beside the point right now. This is the Avs. If you didn't think they were all in before, I mean, this is all in. This is, and it's thrown around a lot, mostly during the NFL draft. We got our guy. And you look at this GM and you're like, okay, you were picking 25th. Are you sure this is your guy? Or even worse yet, when they get into like the fourth round, we got our guy. Okay. Whatever, Sean Payton. This is the Avalanche getting their guy. In more ways than one. He's their guy because he used to play for the Avalanche. But he's also their guy because all along, this was the target, Nazem Kadri. The Avalanche just didn't want a third-line centerman like they got in Nicholas Waugh. They wanted to get what becomes unequivocally the best third-line center in the NHL in Nazem Kadri, somebody who is not a third-line center. And yeah, when you're talking about third-line centermen, you do have to, point out that most third-line centermen are not overly skilled, right? And Nicholas Waugh is a great example. Good on the face-off dot, but defensive-oriented, not particularly fast. He's a grinder, physical guy. And that's what you want. There's nothing wrong with that. So they bring in Nazem Kadri, who could be the second-line center for virtually every team in the NHL, maybe save for the Colorado Avalanche with Brock Nelson. Could be the top-line center on half a dozen, 8 teams. And the Avs have him on their third line. This team might be more loaded than they were when they won the Stanley Cup. I mean, you have to think, you have to look back at that roster and say, okay, Mikko Rantanen, that's one guy that's not here anymore. But look at what Marty Necas has been able to do. So, and I'll still say that Mikko Rantanen's a better player than Marty Necas. But Marty Necas has become everything that the Avalanche hoped and dreamed he would be. You have Brock Nelson now as your second-line center, and you bring back Nazem Kadri, who, I don't know if you've been following him, hasn't fallen off that much. I know the year that he had, his last year in Colorado, it was what we call an outlier. Okay. He was on a stacked roster playing for his next contract. He had a ridiculous season. Okay. But if you look at Nazem Kadri's numbers, even on a lesser team in Calgary, it's not that far off from what he's been for most of his career. I think you have to look at this team. I mean, even in goal, don't you feel better about the Avalanche in goal with Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood right now than you did Darcy Kemper? And Darcy Kemper was great. I think they're better. I think they're better all told than they were when they won the Stanley Cup. Now you have down the middle a group of centermen, because Nicholas Waugh is staying on this team. You have a group of centermen who you would put above every other team's. No team in the NHL is as stacked down the middle as the Colorado Avalanche are. If this doesn't turn out to be a Stanley Cup season for the Colorado Avalanche, it might be because of the power play in the end. That's still a thing. But you won't be able to say, when all is said and done this year, that Chris McFarland didn't do every single thing in his power to make this team a Stanley Cup champion. This master plan that he set out to accomplish a little over a year ago, when he looked at this roster and said, we're top heavy, and he made an unpopular decision to trade Mikko Rantanen, but it was with the goal of making this team be able to roll four lines, to not have a moment where the opponent can breathe. And I'm not going to play revisionist history here. Didn't love the trade when he did it. I could kind of understand the reasoning behind it. I didn't love it. But I said at the time, let's see what the next move is. Okay, this is all about getting more depth. Go out and get more depth. And the next move he made was bringing in Brock Nelson. And then I said, well, you got to retain Brock Nelson now. It's not just good enough to have him as a rental. He signed him to a multi-year extension. And he goes out this year in this trade deadline and moves out Sam Girard for a defenseman who fits a little bit better the role they want in Brett Kulak, opens up money to go out and get that third line center. We thought it was Nicholas Waugh. And then apparently the Calgary Flames owner had a change of heart. The power of the press, we'll call it. I don't know what changed his mind other than the fact that everyone saw, and in Calgary, this did not go over well, by the way. Not the Nazem Kadri trade. The fact that the owner of the Flames would not retain salary in order to facilitate a deal where the Calgary Flames get multiple much-needed assets. That's the only thing I can see right now, is that all the blowback that the Flames received after the reporting from Elliot Friedman that they weren't willing to retain salary, that might have gotten it done. So, Flames fans and Avs fans coming together on social media to put pressure on the Flames to get this deal done. Wild. Absolutely wild. And I said this, I'll take a break. I want your thoughts, 719-247-1313, and we're not done by a long shot talking about this today. But I said yesterday after the Nicholas Watt trade, you would love for the Avalanche to make a significant move to join the arms race in the Central Division. You would love it, but you have to understand that it's more incumbent on Minnesota and Dallas to make those type of moves because they're chasing Colorado. Well, fast forward to today. I'm not saying this is, equivalent to the Minnesota Wild landing Quinn Hughes, but this is certainly a more significant move than Dallas landing Tyler Myers. This is a blockbuster. And the Avalanche are as ready, as complete a hockey team as they possibly can be. They got that one little thing, the power play. But that team that won a Stanley Cup, they had their shortcomings too. In the end, it didn't matter because they were so dang talented. Now look at this team. As talented, if not more so, than the team that hoisted the Stanley Cup a few years ago. Take your reaction. The Avs close out the trade deadline the news came after the deadline passed. I mean, this is the 11th hour that Chris McFarland gets this deal done, and Nazem Kadri is coming back to the Colorado Avalanche to try to help them win another Stanley Cup. 719-247-1313. We are just getting started on this Friday. You're listening to 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. We'll get back to the breaking news of the day. The Avalanche have, I guess, reacquired Nazem Kadri from the Calgary Flames. A whole bunch of stuff is going to the Calgary Flames. None of it, if you're an Avalanche fan, do you care about? Unless you grew some sort of emotional attachment to Victor Olofsson. Um, Prospect draft picks, Victor Olofsson. And Chris McFarland is taking a page out of Les Snead's book when it comes to them picks, saying the same thing to him. We'll get back into that momentarily. I want to let you know that our sweet deal of the week has gone live. It is a family membership, your entire family, a membership for them to attend the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum for a year. A year membership to the museum is half price. It's a $175 value. That's $87.50. And right now, the Paralympics start up. We're still, basking in the glow of everything that happened for Team USA in the Olympics. What a perfect time to take a stroll down memory lane at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. My kids aren't even really that into the Olympics, and they loved the museum. So events and all sorts of stuff happen in there all the time. So it's a great thing to pick up. Just go to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to take advantage of our U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum extra sweet deal of the week. Your reaction to the trade of Nazem Kadri. This came in from Ryan as the news was breaking, looking at the timestamp. How did we get Kadri? How is this our life? I thought it was fake news. And when DJ sent me what he sent me, I thought it was fake news too. And then I kind of looked to see the source, and I'm like, okay, not to say that they couldn't get duped, but this is not like some blog in the nether regions of the internet. And then I went straight to Elliot Friedman's Twitter account, and it was real. And I think that the reaction from Ryan is born out of the fact that I think many people just got used to the idea of Nicholas Waugh now being the third line center. That was their trade to address that position. And I think Avalanche fans should have been okay with that. A little disappointed, sure. So for 24 hours later, the Avs to actually pull this thing off, and for that 24 hours later to be right at the end of the deadline adds to the shock of it all. I'm floored. I'm floored. And here's a great text from Paul. The Kadri trade without giving up anyone besides Olofsson and draft picks is fantastic. Plus, Calgary's eating 20% of the salary, which was, again, the reported sticking point. Everything the Avs gave Calgary today, I read last night and this morning that they were willing to give the Flames 2 days ago. The sticking point was the salary retention. And in my imagination, I see the GM of the Flames, Craig Conroy, going to his owner and like, you realize that we're getting killed right now because we're not willing to retain salary. This is not, all the credit in the world to Chris McFarland. Right? This dude just keeps pulling off big deals. But I'm looking at this and the return, and I'm saying there's nothing different than what the Avalanche were willing to offer earlier. So I don't know that this was, ultimately Chris McFarland that pushed this across the finish line. I'm going to sit here and speculate it was the Flames GM. So like you got to retain some of this salary. We need these picks. We are rebuilding. And for Calgary, I mean, it's not a win of a trade because they're not getting the best player, and the type of trade they're making is one that losing teams make, but that's who they are right now. But you look at between Kadri and the Mackenzie Weegar deal that they made with Utah. I mean, the Flames are like starting to become, the OKC Thunder of the NHL. Like they have so many picks now. So it's a good trade for Calgary, but it's hard to call it like a huge win for the Flames when they're giving up a player that can help them win games because he's about the only guy on the team right now that can help them win games. I got to imagine this was Craig Conroy, the GM of the Flames, who, by the way, met with McFarland in Anaheim the other day. And that was put out there, and people were like, oh, well, no, what else are they supposed to do? They play Anaheim. Yeah, so that made it convenient to meet in person. But you don't think that was a continuation of talks that they were already having? You think they just bumped in, oh, Craig Conroy, GM of the Flames. No, they were talking about Nazem Kadri. They had been talking about Nazem Kadri before. But I think it was Craig Conroy saying, you gotta let me pull the trigger on this deal. You gotta retain some of the salary. I mean, this is not Nicholas Waugh is a tidy bit of business done by Chris McFarland. This is a blockbuster. For the deals that were made at the deadline, Quinn Hughes is going to stand alone as the biggest acquisition by any team this season. And you have to concede that. But in terms of the last 24, 48 this week, Nazem Kadri might be the biggest move made by any team, and was made by a team that, how do I put this? I'm just going to say it. After the Nicholas Waugh trade, do they need Nazem Kadri? I mean, right? Wants, needs, or the Sean Payton thing. What does he do? The musts, the wants, and the needs. Getting Nazem Kadri wasn't a must. It after you traded for Nicholas Waugh wasn't even a need. And yet Chris McFarland gets it done. Paul follows up. How do you think the rest of the league feels? Scared? Or I'm sorry, let me do the right inflection. How do you think the rest of the league feels? ? Scared? ? I think fans of other teams are scared. I would put the emotion, if I'm going to put myself into I think certainly Minnesota's, because Dallas is a different deal. And oh, by the way, guess who the Avs play tonight? But no, I don't think any Kadri will. I'll keep you updated on that, and whether my guess is there's a visa thing, and Nazem Kadri, there's no way he's playing tonight. I think the most optimistic is that I play Sunday against Minnesota. I think if you're Dallas, you still are saying, like, we got this team's number. And you can't blame Dallas for thinking that, right? If the shoe is on the other foot, you'd be saying the same thing. I think Dallas is Jim Nill and that team are like, dang. But I think they can look at themselves and go, but we know exactly how to beat this team. And fair, right? It's kind of like the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. Like, you may think that the Nuggets have surpassed Minnesota, but to be fair, Minnesota, until the Nuggets beat them in a 7-game series, they're not going to feel like they're inferior to the Nuggets. Same with Dallas. But I will say for Minnesota, because let's call this what this is in the NHL. This is a 3-horse race. This is how this will play out in a month or two. 2 of the 3 Central Division teams, Dallas, Minnesota, Colorado, will play each other. One will get bounced. The winner of that series will then play the top seed. As of right now, it would be Minnesota and Dallas playing each other. Winner plays Colorado. The winner of that series is winning the Stanley Cup. I'll just tell you right now, and tell me how I'm wrong. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to commit to which team that will be, but I'm telling you, a matchup between the 2 remaining Central Division teams, that team is going to win the Stanley Cup. Every team in the Pacific Division would not be in the postseason if they were in the Eastern Conference. How crazy is that? And part of the reason is because that Pacific Division gets destroyed by the Central every time they match up. And then the East, I mean, there are some good teams in the East, but tell me who out of the East is beating Minnesota, Dallas, or Colorado. Take your pick. That's the way this is going to go in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The question that I'm asking today, and we will continue to ask as the weeks go on, is Colorado that team? Is Colorado that team that not only stays out of playing Dallas or Minnesota in the first round, but then beats the winner of that series? But the winner of that series is winning the Stanley Cup this year. And I think, setting aside the Dallas of it all, just look in the history. On paper, Minnesota, Dallas, Colorado. Colorado's the best team. But does Nazem Kadri, Nicholas Waugh, do they, Brett Kulak for that matter, do they give the Avalanche the things that they need to beat Dallas? Because that's not necessarily all talent with Dallas. It's the matchup that gives the Avs a lot of problems. Man, this was already going to be fun down the stretch. Man, these 3 teams, it's going to be so fun to watch them battle it out for the Central Division. And oh, by the way, Colorado, Dallas tonight, Colorado, Minnesota on Sunday. 719-247-1313. Continue to take your texts on our big story of the day. Nazem Kadri is coming back to Colorado, and why this is not just the Avs getting a really good player. Well, that's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Think you have the luck of the Irish? Enter to win our pot full of cash. So this will be a St. Patty's Day you'll never forget with $5,000 in our Luck of the Irish giveaway. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest sponsored locally by Bullseye Plumbing, Heating, and Air. No luck needed when Bullseye's on target. I think Chris McFarland should probably enter that contest. He's got to be feeling himself. And he's a kind of an unassuming guy, very quiet as most hockey guys are. He's got to be. He better be strutting around the Avs offices pulling off this deal to get Nazem Kadri today. One other thing that to Paul's, I didn't finish. I talked about Dallas. If I'm Minnesota, I don't have the history that Dallas does with Colorado. If I'm Minnesota, I feel demoralized. I do. If I'm Bill Guerin, this is finally the come down off of the high of building the gold medal winning team in Italy. I get Quinn Hughes and only for the Avalanche to land Nazem Kadri. Are you bleeping kidding me? I would feel a little bit demoralized if I'm Minnesota. In fact, maybe I'll go in and ask some of their fans tonight. Minnesota's here in Vegas playing the Golden Knights tonight. Maybe I'll go in. There will be a lot of Minnesota fans. I guess I don't need to go. I'm going to go see Connor McDavid on Sunday, so I don't need to go twice. I'll just mill around. Maybe go to Tom's Watch Bar or something. Nuggets and Avs are both in action tonight. World Baseball Classic, so I got a lot of things I got to watch. So maybe I'll go somewhere and see if I can find any Minnesota fans and ask them, do a well check. But like in a nice way. It would never in a mean way. Just I would be genuinely curious. And I got a whole slew of Wild fans that are going to be on the streets of this city this evening. I got to imagine they're demoralized. And let me get to a couple of texts first. This from the 719. Too bad neither of those goalies can get the Avs there, meaning the Stanley Cup. No faith in them come playoff time. They will win a round for sure after that, ? Is if you're talking about lack of playoff experience, lack of playoff success for Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood, then I think you bring up a legitimate question. But right now, Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood are in the top 16 among NHL goalies in goals saved above average. Mackenzie Blackwood, by that metric, is a top 10 goaltender this year in the NHL. So if you're basing it on what you've seen, I don't know where you're getting that from. But if you have a question about these guys come playoff time, okay. I didn't look at the loss to Dallas being on Mackenzie Blackwood last year. I did not put him at the top of the list. Fair to ask some questions, but I think that wasn't the reason why the Avalanche got bounced last year in the playoffs. And what he's done and what Scott Wedgwood have done this year, they're both in the top half of the league among starters, top 10th and 16th in goals saved above expected. not just in the top half of all goaltenders. I mean, Scott Wedgwood is better than half the league's starting goaltenders in the one metric, I grant you, but it's a pretty good metric. But even though goaltending is not necessarily at the top of my list, in terms of concerns for the Avs, I am not sitting here saying today, just go ahead and start engraving the Stanley Cup now. I'm not saying that, because this team still has to show that they can beat the Dallas Stars in a 7-game series. But that's it. It's Dallas. That's it. I don't think that Minnesota is better than Colorado. I would take Colorado in a 7-game series against the Wild right now. And don't make me laugh by bringing up anybody from the Pacific Division. But yes, they need to exercise those demons. They need to beat Dallas in a 7-game series. And who knows? Maybe Minnesota does the Avs bidding, and now we're talking about Minnesota in Colorado in round 2. I don't think so. I think the clear pecking order still, as long as Mikko Rantanen is healthy for Dallas, I think the pecking order is Colorado 1, Dallas 2, Minnesota 3. But I'm not saying give them the cup now. But I am saying that they are in an even better spot than they were 24 hours ago to win the Stanley Cup. And I think that the Stanley Cup is going to be awarded to a team that is in the Central Division. This text coming in from Aaron. The GM of the Flames was like Michael Scott at the high school job fair. The longer he waited for a better offer, the more he realized the first was best. What was the name of that kid, by the way? But I know exactly. And Aaron, props to you. Anybody that comes in with an office reference, golden in my book. Yeah, the kid comes up and Michael's like, this is not the kid I want. And then nobody else shows up. That's perfect. That's a perfect analogy, Aaron. But again, I think it was some prodding perhaps from the general manager to say, one, maybe, hey, we didn't get anything better. And two, you gotta make this deal. Because we need these assets to rebuild. And keeping Nazem Kadri on a roster another year isn't getting us any closer to competing. If you kept Nazem Kadri on your roster through the end of the season, that would be probably one draft that you wouldn't have extra assets for. That'd be one free agency period where you'd have Nazem Kadri's contract less in salary cap space. You'd be just that far behind. So I think that the Flames are right to make this deal because they got rebuild. They got to start at the back of the line here. Look at what Anaheim has turned into under Joel Quenneville. Look at what the Sharks are doing with Macklin Celebrini. They got to start their rebuild. So it makes sense for Calgary. And the idea that, retaining salary was the sticking point. Like, really, you love the assets that the Avalanche are offering you, but you don't want to retain any of the salary? Silly. Justin Polsnick. DJ Michaels coming up huge. Justin Polsnick. Headline: This Justin Polsnick. Yeah, but it makes all the sense in the world for Calgary to do this, and Colorado adding this guy. And again, I'll say it: they don't need Nazem Kadri. I don't know if Chris McFarland's going to step to a microphone tonight. Probably not, because they're on a road trip. Although maybe he has to, since it's the end of the trade deadline. But if he says that they needed Nazem Kadri, they don't need him. That's what makes this trade so insane. They don't need him, but man, they are glad to have him. 719-24/7-1313. Nazem Kadri coming back to the Avs. Let's take a stroll down memory lane next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. In live from Vegas, where tomorrow the Air Force women's basketball team takes on Wyoming in the first round of the Mountain West tournament. You can hear that game at 1 o'clock on Extra Sports 1300. Speaking of Air Force postseason, coming up at the bottom of this hour on 740 KVOR, it will be Air Force hockey taking on Robert Morris, game one of their 3-game series in the quarterfinals of the Atlantic Hockey Playoffs. Jay Ritchie, Dave Toller, again, coming up at the bottom of the hour on KVOR. The news of the day, Nazem Kadri is coming back to Colorado. At the 11th hour, the Avalanche agreed, or the Flames agreed, to trade Nazem Kadri because that was the holdup yesterday or this morning, was that the Flames owner did not want to retain any salary. And the feeling from Avs fans was either of these two things. One, what DJ Michaels, my producer today, felt, which was basically stupid Flames owner, or it was, and I was kind of in this camp a little bit, like, why don't you wait a little bit? You know, if this is the timeline where the Avalanche went after Nazem Kadri, the owner said, I'm not retaining any salary. Av said, well, we need you to, or we can't do this. And then the Flames owner stood firm. Avalanche go, okay, let's call up Toronto and get Nicholas Waugh. That was yesterday. You don't want to wait this guy out a little bit? Try to sweeten the pot a little bit? Give him a night to sleep on it? That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, why weren't the Avs like, just wait a second? Silly me. Silly me. Nicholas Waugh and Nazem Kadri are now going to be on the same team. I don't know what pushed this thing across the finish line. A change of heart, some internal pressure, fan pressure, but I legitimately don't see anything of first round pick 2 years from now, a second round pick next year, Victor Olofsson, who is fine for the Avs, but not one of their difference making players, and Max Curran, who is currently an unsigned draftee. That was all discussed. That was all already on the table. So the Avs didn't sweeten the pot. But maybe, the text in from Aaron last hour, like maybe it was just Calgary thought that there would be a team to step up. And by the way, two of the other teams that were supposedly in on Kadri, Dallas and Minnesota. So maybe the Flames owner was sitting there saying, well, I got myself a bidding war going on. I'm not going to retain salary. And then Dallas and Minnesota, if they were both in it, I got to imagine Carolina was calling too. Their offer didn't turn out to be better than the Avs, apparently. And that adds to it too. If you're a Dallas fan or a Minnesota fan, is like, hey, we were rumored to get this guy, and he ends up going to Colorado, to our division rival, to the team that we're trying to chase and unseat atop the Central Division. I don't know what ultimately got it done. I'm sure we'll find out at some point. But man, it's funny. You see what has transpired with the Nuggets, right, over the last few years. They go from the guy who essentially did build their championship team, which was Joe Sakic, right? Turns it over to McFarland, very much like Calvin Booth, adds, peppers in a couple of additions. They win a Stanley Cup. But you didn't build that, Chris McFarland. Joe Sakic did. And you wonder, how far does the apple fall from the tree in this regard? Like, how much of a step down could it be from Joe Sakic to Chris McFarland? Like we've seen with the Nuggets, who now had to replace Calvin Booth because of everything that went down with him. So clearly, going from Tim Connolly to Calvin Booth to some level, now the Nuggets have stayed at a championship level or a championship contender level this whole time, but clearly it's a big drop off from Tim Connolly to Calvin Booth. And now they're on to Ben Tenzer and John Wallace. With Colorado, I mean, look at this stuff that Chris McFarland has done. Makes the Mikko Rantanen trade, brings in both goaltenders. This is in no particular order. He was the guy that brought in Lehkonen. You get Brock Nelson. Not to mention all the extensions that he has been able to sign guys to. And that's probably, I don't know, until now, right? Yeah, DJ pointed out Marty Necas got that deal done, got Brock Nelson's deal done. Now we really got to ask, because I thought for the longest time the best thing Chris McFarland did was guys he got in the building, he didn't let them leave. He signed them to contracts. And he's still done that, but now it's like what the trades for Wedgwood and Blackwood and the Mikko Rantanen trade, which got you Necas. Then you go out and you get Brock Nelson. You add Nicholas Waugh, which is a fine piece, and then you get Nazem Kadri. Like, Joe Sakic's still around, but we have to give, if the Avs win the cup this year, this is Chris McFarland's cup. He made the moves to get this team back, if they do indeed pull it off this year. So very similar situations with both of the teams that call Ball Arena home. It's gone much better for, you have to say, all told, for the Avalanche than the Nuggets. Not to say that the Nuggets are in a terrible spot, but I think you feel a little bit better. Have to. I mean, Calvin Booth's fired now. The succession plan worked better with the Avalanche than it did the Denver Nuggets. So, and this trade getting back Nazem Kadri, I said this earlier, it's not just, the Avs getting a quality player, a player with, that has proven that he can perform in the playoffs and has that grit and sandpaper that you need and has talent to go along with it. Like, this isn't, if it was the same player but his name was John Smith, this would be a good move by Chris McFarland. Really good move. What takes it to another level is the fact that it is a guy that, when he proved he could perform on the biggest stage, he was in an Avalanche sweater. So it's not just a really good difference-making player that the Avs have brought in. They brought back Nazem Kadri. And that run, his last playoff run with the Colorado Avalanche, with the water bottle incident with Jordan Binnington, which, if you're an Avs fan, made the Team USA beating Jordan Bennington all the sweeter. Jordan Bennington throwing the water bottle, and then the threats that Nazem Kadri and his family received, and how this fan base rallied around this guy. And this is a guy, by the way, that was not always in the good graces of Avalanche fans. Remember, he was suspended for a dirty play in a previous playoff. Like, I'm not going to say he was public enemy number one with Avs fans, but he was not well regarded for what he did in the postseason. Had to have been what, around 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was. DJ will let me know. He always lets me know these things. But you recall, he got suspended. Avs get bounced from the playoffs, and Nazem Kadri, it's like, well, this is why Toronto traded him, because he'd pull some of this stuff with Toronto. He came back and had a brilliant season. And with him and Nathan MacKinnon, it was the top two, arguably the top two centermen, probably this side of Draisaitl and McDavid. But there's the water bottle throwing incident, and then there are the threats, and then what does Nazem Kadri go out and do? Hattie. And helps eliminate the St. Louis Blues. And then a moment and a phrase that will forever live in Avalanche lore: too many men. Game 4 of that Stanley Cup final, where a dejected John Cooper was lamenting on how the referees missed that too many men on the ice call, in which Nazem Kadri scored and didn't win the series for the Avs, but the Avs took control of that series. And Nazem Kadri going up to the stage there in downtown Denver, wearing that shirt. I have that shirt, by the way, at my house. That Too Many Men shirt that was made and raised money for, I think it was Nazem Kadri's charity. And he's wearing that Too Many Men shirt as he's hoisting the Stanley Cup. In fact, that's the picture that the Avalanche tweeted out a little while ago, celebrating the return of Nazem Kadri. So this is not just the Avalanche, who over the course of their history have certainly had a propensity to make big moves. Not all of them have worked, but I mean, you think of Bork and Blake and Correa and Solani and Theodore and Fleury and Kadri, these big time moves that the Colorado Avalanche have made. So again, without the history with Colorado, Nazem Kadri is a difference maker. He's a huge get for the Colorado Avalanche or any hockey team. But for the Colorado Avalanche, you got all that other stuff with it, which makes the news today so exciting if you're an Avalanche fan. Got to be on cloud 9. The sentiment that was shared from Ryan at text even before I hit the air. How is this our life? That LeBron meme that the Avs have brought Nazem Kadri back. One of the biggest heroes from their last Stanley Cup run is now back to help them potentially win another one. 719-24/7. 1313. More Drive Time Sports after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. A very intentional choice of bumper music coming back on this day from DJ Michaels. DJ, are you wearing your Kadri jersey? Were you able to run home and grab it before the show started? I know. I know that. I'm just you didn't have it stashed away just in case? Oh, there you go. That works. So you are in the spirit tonight for Avs and Stars. You can hear that on Extra Sports 1300 coming up at 6 o'clock. Having just gotten here to Las Vegas, um, I gotta get adjusted to the time zone a little bit. But yeah, 6 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone, 6 o'clock in the time zone you care about. For me, it's 5 o'clock. Um, no Nazem Kadri tonight. I can tell you that. Um, I can tell you that much. I think it is a little overly optimistic to say that he'll be with the team for the Minnesota game on Sunday, but Nazem Kadri will be with the Colorado Avalanche for the stretch run of this season. And I mentioned this at the top of the show today that you have to look at this team and say they are easily just as good, if not better, than the team that won a Stanley Cup in 2022. Top to bottom. And I hedged a little bit because I was still trying to kind of process everything. I mean, the trade broke like 20 minutes, 15, 10 minutes, I think, before I went on air. But I was kind of like, I think this team is better. Well, my old broadcasting pal, Eric Johnson on Twitter, who, if you recall, played for that team in 2022, quote tweeted a tweet about saying the assertion that this is better, what the Avalanche have now, than the 2022 team. And Eric Johnson said better by a lot, like a lot, chips all in. And that's a guy who played for that team. Eric Johnson saying that. Take your thoughts at 719-24-7, 1313. Speaking of hockey, if you are listening on 740 KVOR, it is time for you to leave us, but you will be able to hear Air Force playoff hockey as they take on Robert Morris, first of a 3-game series. So bye-bye to the KVOR audience. We'll stick here on Extra Sports 1300. And if you're on KVR, go ahead and flip over if you want to stick with this conversation. But Air Force hockey right now on 740 KVOR. Now, but we got to look at this here with this team. So fully healthy. And again, that's part of the issue here is that this team right now is not fully healthy. So they are this tweet is making some assumptions. But Lehkonen, who's currently hurt, McKinnon and Hs, Landeskog, Nelson, and Nichushkin, Colton, Kadri, O'Connor, Brindley, Waugh, Drury as your fourth line. Now, I would say I think Brindley is going to get sent to the AHL. I think you're looking at a Kiwi Ranta. Where's Parker Kelly in all of this? I want the line of O'Connor, Kiviranta, and Parker Kelly. I want that as the fourth line. But then you go, well, what are you going to do with Nicholas Waugh? You can play Kadri on the wing. And in fact, don't be shocked if you see Nazem Kadri play on the second line a little bit here. It gives Jared Bednar some versatility, whether if it's because of the injuries or just to try and find some decent combinations. Like everything right, everybody healthy. Yeah, Nazem Kadri is your third line center. And while I would say I like the line of Kiviranta, Kelly, and O'Connor, I think with the addition of Nicholas Waugh, you have to say that that's probably not feasible to have them as your fourth liners. But Gavin Brindley is going to be out. I don't think he's going to be a part of the postseason rotation. Yeah, but McKinnon, Nelson, Kadri, and Waugh down the middle that's just stupid. Yeah, and see this one that DJ is sending me says this one just doesn't have Logan O'Connor because he's not healthy. But everybody healthy, you go, well, Jared Bednar has said he likes Landeskog on the top line. But let's say Landeskog, McKinnon, Natchez, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, and Nelson, that's your top six. You'll see Nazem Kadri in the top six a little bit, but that's your top six. And then you go Kadri. Yeah, I mean, they just Brindley's gone, but so many more options for that bottom six now. And I actually saying this, I would, as good of a centerman as Nazem Kadri is, his versatility I think is greater than Waugh's. So if we're not talking about Nicholas Waugh being on the fourth line, I think you put Kadri as the winger on that third line. I like Nicholas Waugh as the center, and I don't love him as much as a winger. But Kadri certainly has the positional flexibility to be able to do both. And look, here's the thing. We've talked about the depth. All of the team, the Nuggets and the Avalanche, both prioritizing depth. Part of the reason why you prioritize depth is because you know you're not going to have everyone. Now, the indications as far as Logan O'Connor are that he's going to be back soon. But we don't know what soon means. And Lehkonen just got hurt the other. You would love to be talking about the Avs fully healthy. I don't know that the Avs are going to be fully healthy. But if we're talking about, with all due respect, Kiviranta or Parker Kelly or Logan O'Connor as the guys that are hurt, I think you feel like the Avalanche won't be too hampered by those kind of injuries, given that they have added Nicholas Waugh and Nazem Kadri. Kadri this year, so he has 41 points through 61 games. So a little bit, I guess, on pace. I'm not a mathematician, but that feels like he's a little bit behind the pace that he had last year. And he's never going to get back to the 87 points that he had. Like, I hope that's not what anybody is thinking here, is that Nazem Kadri is going to be back to the guy that he's not that guy anymore. Slow start to his Calgary career, but came back 75 points, 67 points. This year, 41 points in 61 games on a garbage hockey team. So, as you try to calibrate maybe what to expect from Nazem Kadri, he's never going to be the 87 point Nazem Kadri ever again. Right? It just not that I mean, some of the leading up to it, he had 36, 32. In his best year in Toronto was 61 points. Like, he's never going to be that guy. But can you say that he has the chance playing with the Colorado Avalanche to be better than, you know, oh, I'm looking at like he had 75 points 2 years ago, 67 last year, 41 this year. I think I was just looking at assists. Still a little bit behind the pace. I think you can say a little bit less ice time, but on a much better team. The Kadri that Calgary has had the last couple years, I think I think that's the floor of what Nazem Kadri could be with the Avalanche. But you know who's the happiest guy right now? Jared Bednar. He's got to be tickled by this whole thing because Jared Bednar loves experimenting with line combinations, right? So he's going to have a field day with this. And I'm telling you, Nazem Kadri may not be on the third line the first night he's in an Av sweater. He might be on the second line. With Lehkonen being hurt, I could see a line of Nelson, Nichushkin, and Nazem Kadri. And that has the chance to be really good. And then Lehkonen comes back, and it's like, well, Nazem Kadri, now you're on our third line. Good luck to opposing teams in the Western Conference. 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on Nazem Kadri returning to the Colorado Avalanche in a blockbuster deal right at the horn of today's 1 o'clock NHL trade deadline. More Drive Time Sports after this on Extra Sports 1300. Nazem Kadri back with the Colorado Avalanche, and it's taken me an hour and 39 minutes to ask. I wouldn't say the biggest question, because the biggest question obviously now is, will the Avs win a Stanley Cup? Which I've gotten a lot of reaction, but now this is settled in. Like, Nazem Kadri's coming back. All right, are the Avs winning? Let me know at 719-247-1313. But beyond, or just a notch below, are the Avs going to win a Stanley Cup? And this is kind of tied to it. Is Nazem Kadri going to help the Avs power play? Nazem Kadri this year has 2 power play goals and 11 power play assists. So he has 13 points on the power play. That would tie him. Nay, that would put him third on the Colorado Avalanche, behind Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, in terms of power play points. In terms of power play goals, he'd be tied for fourth on the team with Makar. Now, Cale Makar's kind of had a rough go of it, scoring goals this year. I mean, everybody healthy, you're throwing out your first power play unit is Nazem Kadri on it. I don't think he's going to be. I think he will be to start, because again, Arturi Lehkonen being hurt. But I don't think he's. But I think it just goes to, it's the same dynamic as adding him to your third line, right? Second power play unit or third line, you have a player that's obviously going to elevate that. Now, I don't think that means that Nazem Kadri is going to fix the Avalanche's power play. I don't. But he sure as hell ain't going to hurt it, right? So I'm not putting that necessarily on Nazem Kadri. I'm not going to say that he's going to fix the Avs power play. I think the Avs power play has deeper seated issues than just, hey, we need this guy to be on our power play. I think it's ideas. I think it's where the players are being put on the ice. But he's not going to hurt it. He's not going to drag it down. And if those ideas get better, and players are put in better positions to succeed on the power play, then it gives the Avalanche the chance to have 2 pretty good power play units. But this thing is, again, we'll see tonight and Sunday with Marty Necas and moving him out and putting him in the circle there in Nathan MacKinnon's spot, whether that can hold against better teams. But I expect the Avalanche power play, even with these moves, to still be their Achilles heel. And that's why I can't sit here today and say unequivocally Avs are going to the Stanley Cup, because it was special teams in the end and Mikko Rantanen going galactic with his performance that bounced the Avs last year. But man, everywhere else, like the power play weakness, definitely. Anywhere else? Anything else you can think of? You know, when Chris McFarland made the deal to trade Mikko Rantanen, the idea was to make the Avalanche a deeper hockey club. Lo and behold, a season later, they're the deepest team in the NHL. Not just deeper than they once were, they're the deepest. Does this get Chris McFarland Jim Nill, the Stars GM, won Executive of the Year last year because he landed Mikko Rantanen. Bill Guerin's Bill Guerin will probably win it for landing Quinn Hughes, but this is GM of the Year stuff to land at Nazem Kadri after you get Nicholas Waugh. Let's not forget Nicholas Waugh in all of this. The guy 24 hours ago was the big addition. Yeah, Guerin's going to win because he added Quinn Hughes, but man, in a world where Minnesota doesn't land Quinn Hughes, I don't know how you can pick anybody else other than Chris McFarland. This is a huge move made by the Colorado Avalanche. And they'll be in action tonight against Dallas. Dallas will be without Mikko Rantanen, but that has not mattered a whole lot. Where are we at now with the Dallas Stars? Is it 10? 10 game, 11 game winning streak? Where are they at? They are, even without Mikko Rantanen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Still 10. Dallas on a 10-game winning streak. Right now, they've won every game, obviously, out of the Olympic break, despite not having Mikko Rantanen. And they're coming off of back-to-back 6-1 wins. Now over Vancouver and Calgary, but still. Tonight, even, with the Nazem Kadri stuff, there's going to be some buzz with the Colorado Avalanche for sure. But this game was already going to be a big game with two teams, and the Avalanche looked great against Anaheim. So that's coming up 6 o'clock. Our coverage from altitude will begin at 5:30. This from the 719. Same person who texted yesterday in Sakic we trust comes back today with the Avs front office is awesome. Yeah, this is. Kyle says, let's not forget is right. We got this, Ryan. Believe. I mean, it's Dallas. That's what it is. It's Dallas. Do they beat Dallas? If you tell me right now unequivocally that the Colorado Avalanche would eliminate the Dallas Stars in a 7-game series, they're winning the Stanley Cup. But I got to see it. Uh, Kyle says Avs, Nugs. It says heck, Avs, Nugs, and Broncos all gonna have a parade in the next 12 months. Screw logic. Let's just celebrate. Well, let me ask this question, Kyle and everyone else. How many parades? Like Kyle's enthusiasm is welcome for sure. How many? How many parades will be going through Denver in the next 12 months or so? DJ says drink him if you got him, Kool-Aid man. Um, I'll tell you this, the Avs are the best shot. And by the way, 24 hours ago, I felt like the Colorado Avalanche were the best shot for the net or the most likely team to be the next champion in this state. And adding Nazem Kadri only fortifies that. Right. The Avalanche are the team that I believe in the most out of those three. Although tonight and especially Monday for the Denver Nuggets, they have an opportunity to win some people back a little bit here. We'll talk about that and some good news on the Nuggets front as well coming up during what's driving the show. Oh, I won't make you wait. That's not nice. Aaron Gordon might be back tonight for the Denver Nuggets. He has been upgraded to questionable, so we'll see. I mean, even if he plays, it'll be a wee bit. But does that mean that he'll be a full go for the OKC game on Monday? Because that's what we really care about. Is Aaron Gordon going to be able to play? I don't think that Aaron Gordon is going to play the whole game. There's too much heat right now on David Adelman for the fact that the last time Aaron Gordon came back, he played him on back-to-backs and he got hurt again. They're going to slow play this, but can you get Aaron Gordon for 20 minutes Monday night? And what does he have to play tonight against New York if he does play in order for him to be in line for more minutes? But Aaron Gordon has been upgraded to questionable, and we're awaiting word from the Nuggets on whether he will play and what the plan is for Aaron Gordon. So you got Nazem Kadri returning to the Avs. You got Aaron Gordon returning to the lineup potentially. And also the Broncos showing some interest in more free agents. I'm telling you, like I said this about the Avalanche after they made the Gerard trade. I said they're trying, and I guess I ended up getting it right in the end. They're trying for something significant when they made the Sam Gerard trade. Well, this is the significant thing. They got it done. There's no guarantees. And in fact, this morning it was dead. I'll say this for the Denver Broncos. It's not moves they're making, it's rumor. But I think you can expect the Broncos to make a significant addition to their team. There is just a ton of smoke billowing right now around the biggest names on the free agent market with the Denver Broncos. They're going to get one of these guys. I just think the best one to get would be Kenneth Walker, but Romeo Doubs, wide receiver from the Green Bay Packers, is another one now that the Broncos are being linked to. I think if if the asking price for AJ Brown is too high, this feels like a natural spot to go to add to that wide receiver room because I don't know how feasible it is for the Denver Broncos to pay $30 million to Alec Pierce. We'll talk more about that after the top of the hour. The three stories that are driving the show coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in live from Vegas, where I will be for a little while. Hopefully, I'll be calling Air Force women's basketball games for the next 5 days as they tip off the Mount West tournament tomorrow against Wyoming. That game will be at 1 o'clock here on Extra Sports 1300, which is currently the only station in which you can hear this show right now. Because over on KVOR, they're getting ready to drop the puck in game one of a 3-game series between Air Force and Robert Morris in the Atlantic Hockey quarterfinals. Of course, me saying that this is the only station that you can hear me on. If you're listening on KVOR, you're not even hearing me tell you that this is the only station. I don't know why I said that, but appreciate you tuning in on Extra Sports 1300. Of course, there's another way that every day, regardless of the station or stations that I am on, that you can consume this show, and that is by watching it on our social media platforms, whether you follow Extra Sports 1300, KVOR, 740 KVOR to get the handle correct, on Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube. And while you're there, like, subscribe, tell your friends, and most importantly, drop a comment. And I'll add those to the mix along with our phone calls and texts to 719 247 1313. Perhaps. There you go. It's getting spooky with DJ Michaels that he knows exactly where my mind is going. Yes, the 3 stories that are driving the show today, and this story, this number 1 story, has been dominating this show. Hit it, Deej. That, of course, a call from ESPN, game 4 of the Stanley Cup final, where Nazem Kadri scored the goal that will live in infamy because of the supposed supposed too many men on the ice penalty. And that year, Nazem Kadri became somewhat of a folk hero with Colorado sports fans. And today, that folk hero returns. Nobody was expecting this, but Chris McFarland, right at the buzzer, landed Nazem Kadri from the Calgary Flames. The return, not that you are too worried about it because Nazem Kadri's back, but it's Victor Olofsson, undrafted rookie Max Curran, or unsigned draft pick Max Curran, to be correct, a conditional first-round pick in 2028 and a conditional second-round pick in 2027. Avalanche also get back a fourth-round pick from Calgary. Now, the word on the street was that the holdup on a deal was because the Flames owner was not interested in retaining any of Nazem Kadri's salary. But it was confirmed that the Avs were going after Nazem Kadri, as I expected and as you and I have been discussing for days now. But the owner didn't want to retain any salary. That was the report from Elliot Friedman. And Avalanche fans were getting very upset about that. but also coming to grips with the fact that Nazem Kadri wasn't going to be an Av because of that, and also the addition of Nicholas Waugh. Chris McFarland was not going to be denied. Whatever it was that pushed it across the finish line, Chris McFarland gets another blockbuster done in the middle of a season. This is becoming an annual thing for him. And this time, there is no downside for the Colorado Avalanche, like there was with the Mikko Rantanen deal. This is only upside, and this is giving the Avs the most depth that any team has down the middle of the ice with the center position. They can roll McKinnon, Nelson, Kadri, and Waugh. Nobody else in the NHL has that. And when you stack this roster from top to bottom, it is on paper better than the one that won the Stanley Cup in 2022. My once broadcast partner, Eric Johnson, has convinced me this top to bottom is a better team. Not that you're getting the same Nazem Kadri that helped you win a cup now anchoring your third line, but this Nazem Kadri on a bad hockey team has been incredibly productive the last 2 seasons. And you're putting that in a spot normally reserved for grinders, guys that don't put up a lot of points. Now, Nazem Kadri, he's got that edge to him for sure. He'll fit in nicely on the third line, but he is uncommon for what NHL teams normally throw out there. But this already, the Avalanche were the team that Dallas and Minnesota had to make moves to try and catch, right? Quinn Hughes, last couple of days, Tyler Myers. And then Chris McFarland just came down with the hammer and said, we'll get Nazem Kadri. I can't say that the Avalanche today are definitely going to win the Stanley Cup because I got to see them beat Dallas in a 7-game series. But I'll say this, on paper, we can compare 2022 to 2026. There is not a team in the National Hockey League that top to bottom is better than Colorado. There isn't. And the Stanley Cup playoffs, being that they are 7-game series, are supposed to crown the most deserving, truly the best team. If that trend holds, the Avalanche, this is the move to put the finishing touches on the next Avalanche Stanley Cup winning team. And what a homecoming it's going to be for this guy the first time he steps out on the ice at Ball Arena. That place is going to be unhinged. Didn't think it was going to happen. Was fine with the addition of Nicholas Waugh. But man, what a move today by Chris McFarland to bring Nazem Kadri back to Colorado. Here's story number 2. Oh, wait. Sunday, they're in Minnesota, though. Right? They're in Minnesota on Sunday. They're home? Oh, I thought they were in Minnesota. I'm going to say Tuesday against Edmonton. Have you seen anything on it, DJ? Anybody saying anything? Okay. I'll say Tuesday. And I think it's worked for me lately because I'm like, yeah, Nicholas Waugh probably means no Nazem Kadri. So I'll say most likely Tuesday night against the Edmonton Oilers, high-profile game as well. That's when Nazem Kadri makes his Avalanche return. But I think they'll try like heck to get him his visa and all that stuff done by Sunday so he could join the team for the Minnesota game. I'm sure you'll hear from we got Avs and Stars coming up at the bottom of the hour. I think this subject will come up and maybe we'll get a better idea. I'll say Tuesday and be happy to be wrong if it is Sunday at noon. Oh, wait, is that my noon or your noon? It is your noon. Mountain time. Let's go to story number 2 now. Cause on the call for Altitude Radio, as heard right here on Extra Sports 1300. The Nuggets get a better win than the one they got on Monday night against the Utah Jazz. Now, I will say that their 120-113 win over the Lakers is not one where I go, okay, bring on OKC by any stretch of the imagination. But the Nuggets needed that. They were in control of the game, or they were ahead, I should say, of the Lakers all night. It was a wire-to-wire victory. They jumped on them, an 11-0 run to begin the game. And while the Lakers kept getting closer and closer, the Nuggets were able to land the counterpunch to keep the Lakers at bay. So that was a good win for the Denver Nuggets to get, and now you try to build on it tonight against New York and hopefully crescendoing into the Monday tilt with OKC. In that game, Nikola Jokic with 28 points, 13 assists, and 12 rebounds, another triple-double. He had a triple-double before the fourth quarter even began. Jamal Murray, once again, another game against the Lakers, another scintillating Murray performance with 28 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds. It was a good night for the Denver Nuggets. Julian Strawther had 18. Christian Braun had 15, although he was horrendous from the three-point line. Tim Hardaway with 14 off the bench. So it's a game that I think starts to make you feel better about Monday's game against OKC. And now tonight, the competition level takes a step up with the New York Knicks. And if the Nuggets can get a win there, then I think the confidence, if you're a Nuggets fan, is at a decent level going into Monday's rematch with OKC. And something that will add to it, they'll probably have Aaron Gordon for Monday. Now, he's been upgraded to questionable for tonight, and we'll see what David Adelman says. I think Aaron Gordon will play. I think he's going to be severely limited in his minutes. So I don't know what kind of a role Aaron Gordon is going to play in the OKC game on Monday. And quite honestly, as big of a game as Monday is, they need Aaron Gordon for 7 games, if you catch my drift. You would love for Aaron Gordon to be ramped up by playing some minutes tonight, getting a day off, couple days off, and play a bigger role against OKC so we can see it. Jokic, Gordon, the band back together going up against OKC and what that looks like. David Adelman's got to be really smart about this. He's got to be really smart about this because I think Nuggets Nation has been teetering on the brink as of late. If Aaron Gordon comes back and immediately gets hurt, it's game over. I think people, and I think I'm going to be out. If they can't keep Aaron Gordon healthy for 2, 3, 4 games here, and don't forget next week they play Houston and San Antonio, not insignificant games. If they can't keep Aaron Gordon healthy through this next week, then it's a wrap. Then you can't convince me that Aaron Gordon is going to be 100% like they need him to be for a 7-game series against OKC. So, whatever role Aaron Gordon plays, however many minutes, Nuggets take your shot against OKC. Hopefully, you feel even better if they can get a win, even with Aaron Gordon unlimited minutes. But this is about the long game. This is about OKC in a 7-game series, not in a one-off on a Monday night in OKC. So Aaron Gordon upgraded to questionable. We'll see what role he plays tonight as the Nuggets host the New York Knicks in their last tune-up before that heavily anticipated rematch with the OKC Thunder on Monday. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. In fact, that will be what our last segment of the week will be, because we got Avs and Stars at the bottom of the hour here on Extra Sports 1300. You should just add this to the bumper rotator. How do I not have this in the bumper rotator? Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Nazem Kadri was on TSN's Trade Center, Sports Center, whatever it is up there in Canada. He was brought on to the show, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Is this real? Is this real?" And I think that's a perfect full circle moment, because the first text out of the gates today when the news broke on the text line, Ryan says, "How is this our life?" Kind of the same energy there from Nazem Kadri. He said, "Is this real?" Nazem Kadri might be happier than the Avalanche are. Albert texts in, "Avalanche fans singing Barbra Streisand tunes now, memories." I think I can recognize that. Is that from The Way We Were? Yeah. Good pull. Where we are. Avalanche fans are. DJ's been actually, and I don't mean to throw DJ under the bus because he's done a brilliant job of producing as always. He's been singing that song nonstop since we went on air. So yeah, it's happening. But DJ has a lovely singing voice, I will say that. From the 719 from the 719, prettier than mine, I'll say that much. From the 719, let's go Stars. Let's get number 11. No, no, no. What are you doing coming in here with that? We're not doing that today. Yeah, the tonight it's kind of like you got to kind of set aside the Kadri stuff, because tonight's a big game. And I said this yesterday, you know, I wasn't as I'll say this. I thought Jared Bednar was being a little bit of an alarmist when he talked about the consequences of losing the Minnesota game about a week ago. But I will join him if the Avs don't pick up wins this weekend. And this is the perfect transition here, because we got our coverage from altitude coming up at the bottom of the hour. The Kadri stuff is awesome. It's amazing. And compared to the feeling of the last blockbuster, and Brock Nelson was a big move, but let's be real. The last blockbuster was Mikko Rantanen. There were some uneasy feelings about that, if we're being honest. This is all hype when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. This is all good. This is not, how is this going to work? This is going to work amazingly well. But you got to set that aside now, because he's not going to be on the ice. And the Avalanche team, as currently constructed, they got to put an end to this Dallas winning streak. Because I don't think it's uncomfortable, but it's not as comfortable atop the Central as it was coming out of the Olympic break. And which is crazy, because the Avs have lost just the one game, but they lost it to the wrong team. But Avs got to at least get one. They at least got to get one. They can't lose both of these games this weekend. But the Dallas Stars, hotter than anybody right now, even without Mikko Rantanen on a 10-game winning streak, a franchise record. So I think you would have to say that if the Avs aren't going to pull off both wins, this would be the loss, and then Sunday would become the must win. the must get. But we'll see. I mean, the players got to be as hyped as Avs fans are to get Nazem Kadri back. So maybe an inspired performance. And I will and after and the Anaheim game was important. That performance was important. It's like I was talking about with the Denver Nuggets. If the last game before the OKC rematch was that Utah game on Monday, well, last night better. A win tonight would be even better for the Denver Nuggets because the Knicks are a contender to get out of the East. Second night of a back-to-back, it's going to be tough, but I think the confidence will go up quite a bit for that OKC game on Monday if the Nuggets also win tonight against the Knicks. But it's the same deal with the Avalanche. Like the way they were playing, and everyone was a little sluggish coming out of the break, except for Dallas, apparently. They were fighting it a little bit. Some ugly results, but I thought they kind of started to break through a little bit late in that Kings game, and they looked really good against Anaheim. Now, Dallas is a step up for sure, but, you build up to it. Massive weekend for the Colorado Avalanche, for sure. Come Monday, it will be a big night for the Denver Nuggets. And then, gosh, we got stuff in between there. Tomorrow, I will have the Air Force women's basketball team round 1 of the Mountain West tournament taking on Wyoming. That'll be a 1 o'clock tip. And then more of me later tomorrow night as the Switchbacks open their season against El Paso Locomotive. Very excited about this upcoming season with the Switchbacks. I said this yesterday when Hugh Johnson joined me from the Gazette. There's some juice with this team. There was a lot on their shoulders last year to repeat as champions. And now it's just fueled the fire, the fact that they fell short. So I'm very excited to see how they do tomorrow night. So I'll talk to you at one of those 2 points tomorrow. My thanks to DJ Michaels back at the Extra Sports 1300 studios. And stay tuned because up next, the Avalanche. No Nazem Kadri yet, but they're taking on the Dallas Stars. Huge game right here on Extra Sports 1300.